Okay, super important update. The House just passed its 6-month funding bill. Terrible bill. It is now going to the Senate. I want to tell you a little bit about what's in it and why it is absolutely imperative that Democrats in the Senate stop it. So let's get into it. Now, one important thing to understand is that this bill that they voted on today is different than this one, the reconciliation package we were talking about last week. The reconciliation package is about funding starting in 2026, and that's where we are going to see the giant cuts to Medicaid and SNAP so that Republicans can pay for their tax cuts for rich people and corporations. We have to have that fight still, but that's coming a little further down the pike. The bill they voted on today is a stopgap funding bill to just get us through to September, which is the end of the fiscal year. And the reason we have to do this is because Republicans, since they came into power in 2023, have been unable to pass a full year budget. Republicans, remember, can't govern. And so they've just been kicking the can down the road over and over again. We're approaching another government shutdown deadline on Friday, and so Republicans have gone into rooms by themselves, refused to work with Democrats, and come up with this very severe, awful stopgap funding package, which they are now going to send to the Senate and ask Democrats to participate in passing. And the important thing to remember is, unlike the reconciliation bill that we will have to deal with in a few months, this funding bill can be filibustered, and that means they need 7 Democrats to get it over the top. And that is where our power and our leverage comes in, and why it is so important that in its current form, Democrats not support it. So let's get into the details now. So the first thing to know about it is it does not stop Elon Musk from coming after Social Security. That's your top line information, and that's so important. In fact, it allows him to start firing staff and shutting down offices, and that, as we know, is the beginning of the end of Social Security. But there's so much more. So first of all, it cuts funding for the PACT Act by $22.8 billion. The PACT Act, of course, was a bill that Joe Biden signed into law, and it gives care and benefits for veterans who are exposed to toxic burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. So, of course, Republicans want to defund it. This funding bill also cuts NIH funding by $280 million. That's the National Institute for Health, and that will cut research funding for cancer, Alzheimer's, all kinds of rare disease and childhood diseases. Sorry, all of it is on the cutting block because, cancer research just isn't that important unless you're giving a State of the Union address. This funding package cuts funding for the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service by $27 million. Guess what they work on? Avian flu. The package cuts $40 million in election security grant funding. Oh, we care so much about election security. Really? This is going to mean elections will be less fair and less secure. Trump says that nuclear weapons are a huge threat to the United States, but guess what this budget cuts? $185 million from defense nuclear proliferation programs. Wait, there's more. They want to cut $1 billion from Washington, D.C.'s local budget. Guess where the money's going to come from? Schools and police. Republicans want to defund the police in their new budget. They want to cut support for rural broadband Community Connect program by $30 million. They want to cut Army Corps of Engineers projects by $1.4 billion. The Republican budget cuts the Emergency Food Assistance program by $20 million. This would force about 25,000 senior citizens to go without food. This budget cuts rent subsidies for low-income and working Americans by more than $700 million. Republican budget refuses to renew $293 million worth of FEMA disaster preparedness money. Also declines to renew $116 million in Small Business Administration funding and $107 million in workforce development projects. Cuts clean water projects, law enforcement grants, and tribal assistance as well. More, this bill doesn't renew $40 million in funding for more than 70 programs that help children and families, because, pro-life. This bill also maintains a freeze on $20 billion in special IRS funding that, when it was in place, brought in more money than it spent when it audited rich tax cheats. They give Republicans a lot of money, so it had to go. So who does get generosity in this bill? 3 places, really. 1, Elon Musk. There's stuff sent to Starlink all over the place. Remember, he's making $8 million a day off of government contracts right now, while we are all getting everything we rely on cut. ICE is being given a $10 billion blank check to keep deporting and detaining people and making sure those private prison owners are making lots and lots of bling. And while non-defense funding would be falling by about $13 billion, defense funding would go up by $6 billion because the Department of Defense is the one department that DOJ will not visit, even though they are the one department that has not passed an audit in over 10 years. Okay, so now you understand how absolutely awful this bill is. Again, the House was able to pass it with only Republican votes and 1 Democrat. Screw you. Our job is to make sure that Democrats vote no on this bill when it comes to the Senate, because Republicans can't pass it without 7 Democratic votes. Right now, the only Democratic senator who we know is going to vote for it is John Fetterman. Don't even get me started. Our job is to make sure that not a single other Democrat supports it. Will it maybe shut the government down? Maybe, but Republicans have full control of every single chamber of government right now. So if there's a shutdown, it's on them. Call your Democratic senator. I will put a script in my link tree. This budget is cruel, it is inhuman, and it does nothing to rein in Elon Musk, who is currently dismantling our government system to profit for himself. Make it stop. Make the call. This budget is bullshit. Thanks for listening to my little lecture.